Letter of Burgomeister Johannes Junius to his daughter Veronica, July 21st, 1628. Many 100,000 good nights, dearly beloved daughter Veronica. Innocent have I come into prison, innocent have I been tortured, innocent must I die. For whoever comes into the witch prison must become a witch, or be tortured until he invents something out of his head, and, God pity him, bethinks him of something. I will tell you how it has gone with me. When I was the first time put to the torture, my brother-in-law, Dr. Brown, Dr. Kurtzendorfer, and 2 strange doctors were there. Then Dr. Brown asks me, "Kinsman, how come you are here?" I answered, "Through falsehood and misfortune." "Hear you," he retorts, "you are a witch. Will you confess it voluntarily? If not, we'll bring in witnesses and the executioner for you." I said, "I am no witch. I have a pure conscience in the matter. If there are 1,000 witnesses, I am not anxious, but I'll gladly hear them." Then the Chancellor's son was set before me, who said he had seen me. I asked that he be sworn and legally examined, but Dr. Brown refused it. Then the Chancellor, Dr. Johann, was brought, who said the same as his son. Afterward, Herpfen Elsa. She had seen me dance on Hauptsmallwald, but they refused to swear her in. I said, "I have never renounced God, and will never do it. God graciously keep me from it. I'll rather bear whatever I must." And then came also, "God in highest heaven have mercy, the executioner, and put the thumbscrews on me, both hands bound together, so that the blood spurted from the nails and everywhere, so that for 4 weeks I could not use my hands, as you can see from my writing. Thereafter they stripped me, bound my hands behind me, and drew me up on the ladder. Then I thought heaven and earth were at an end. 8 times did they draw me up and let me fall again, so that I suffered terrible agony. I said to Dr. Brown, 'God forgive you for thus misusing an innocent and honourable man.' He replied, 'You are a knave.' And this happened on Friday, June the 30th, and with God's help I had to bear the torture. When at last the executioner led me back into the cell, he said to me, 'Sir, I beg you, for God's sake, confess something, whether it be true or not. Invent something, for you cannot endure the torture which you will be put to, and even if you bear it all, yet you will not escape, not even if you were an earl, but one torture will follow another until you say you are a witch. Not before that,' he said, 'will they let you go, as you may see by all their trials, for one is just like another.' Then came Johann, who said the commissioners had said the Prince-Bishop wished to make such an example of me that everybody would be astonished. And so I begged, since I was in wretched plight, to be given 1 day for thought and a priest. The priest was refused me, but the time for thought was given. Now, my dearest child, see in what hazard I stood and still stand. I must say that I am a witch, though I am not. I must now renounce God, though I have never done it before. Day and night I was deeply troubled, but at last there came to me a new idea. I would not be anxious, but since I had been given no priest with whom I could take counsel, I would myself think of something and say it. It were surely better that I just say it with mouth and words, even though I had not really done it, and afterwards I could confess it to the priest, and let those answer for it who compel me to do it. And so I made my confession, as follows, but it was all a lie. Now follows, dear child, what I confessed in order to escape the great anguish and bitter torture, which it was impossible for me longer to bear. Then I had to tell what people I had seen at the Sabbat. I said that I had not recognized them. "You old knave, I must put the torturer at your throat. Say, was not the Chancellor there?" So I said yes. "Who besides?" I had not recognized anybody, so he said, Take one street after another, begin at the market, go out on one street and back on the next. I had to name several persons there. Then came the long street. I knew nobody. Had to name 8 persons there. Then the Zinkenwirt. 1 person more. Then over the upper bridge to the Georgtor, on both sides. Knew nobody again. Did I know nobody in the castle? Whoever it might be, I should speak without fear. And thus continuously they asked me on all the streets, though I could not and would not say more. So they gave me to the torturer, told him to strip me, shave me all over, and put me to the torture. The rascal knows one on the marketplace, is with him daily, and yet won't name him. By this they meant Burgomeister Dietmeier. So I had to name him too. Then I had to tell what crimes I had committed. I said nothing. Hoist the knave up! So I said that I was to kill my children, but I had killed a horse instead. It did not help. I had also taken a sacred wafer and had buried it. When I said this, they left me in peace. Now, my dearest child, here you have all my acts and confession, for which I must die. And it is all sheer lies and inventions, so help me God. For all this I was forced to say, through dread of torture beyond what I had already endured. For they never cease the torture till one confesses something, be he ever so pious, he must be a witch. Nobody escapes, though he were an earl. If God send no means of bringing the truth to light, our whole kindred will be burned. God in heaven knows that I know not the slightest thing. I die innocent and as a martyr. Dear child, keep this letter secret, so that people do not find it, else I should be tortured most piteously, and the jailers will be beheaded. So strictly is it forbidden. Dear child, pay this man a thaler. I have taken several days to write this. My hands are both crippled. I am in a sad plight. Good night, for your father Johannes Junius will never see you more.
And here is how the witch judges rewrote and recast Johannes Junius's forced false confession.
Confession of Burgomeister Johannes Junius. When in the year 1621 his lawsuit at Rottweil cost him some 600 florins, he had gone out, in the month of August, into the orchard at Friedrichsbrunnen, and as he sat there in thought, there had come to him a woman like a grass maid, who had asked him why he sat there so sorrowful. He had answered that he was not despondent, but she had led him by seductive speeches to yield to her will, and thereafter this wench had changed into the form of a goat, which bleated and said, Now you see with whom you have had to do. You must be mine, or I will forthwith break your neck. Thereupon he had been frightened, and trembled all over for fear. Then the transformed spirit had seized him by the throat, and demanded that he should renounce God Almighty, whereupon Junius said, God help me. And thereupon the spirit vanished through the power of these words. Yet it came straightway back, brought more people with it, and persistently demanded of him that he renounce God in heaven, and all the heavenly host, by which terrible threatening he was obliged to speak this formula. I renounce God in heaven and his host, and will henceforth recognize the devil as my God. After the renunciation, he was so far persuaded by those present and by the evil spirit that he suffered himself to be baptized by the devil in the evil spirit's name. The Moorhauptin had given him a ducat as dower gold, which afterward became only a potsherd. He was then named Crix. His succubus was called Fuchsen. Those present had congratulated him in Beelzebub's name, and said that they were now all alike. At his baptism, among others, were the aforesaid Moorhaupten Christiana, the young Geiselin, Paul Glasser, Caspar Wittich, and Klaus Gebhard, who were both gardeners. After this they had dispersed. At this time his paramour had promised to provide him with money, and from time to time to take him to the sabbats. Whenever he wished to ride to the sabbat, a black dog would come to his bed and tell him to come, whereupon he would mount it, and the dog would raise himself in the devil's name, and so fly off. About 2 years ago, he was taken to the electoral council room at the left hand as one goes in. Above, at a table, were seated the Chancellor, the Burgomeister Neudecker, Dr. Georg Haas, and 24 others. Since his eyes were not good, he could not recognize more persons. More time for consideration was now given him. On July the 7th, 1628, the aforesaid Junius was again examined to know what further had occurred to him to confess. He confessed that about 2 months ago, on the day after an execution was held, he was at a witch dance at the Black Cross, where Beelzebub had shown himself to them all, and said expressly to their faces that they must all be burned together on the spot, and had ridiculed and taunted those present. Names 4 more witches. Crimes of Burgomeister Johannes Junius. Immediately after his seduction, his succubus had demanded that he should make away with his youngest boy, Hans Georg, and had given him a grey powder for this purpose. This, however, being too hard for him, he had made away with his brown horse instead. His succubus had also repeatedly urged him to kill his daughters, and because he refused, he had been beaten therefor. Once, at the suggestion of his succubus, he had taken the holy wafer out of his mouth and had given it to her, was obliged occasionally to have intercourse with his succubus. A week before his arrest, as he was going to St. Martin's Church, the devil met him on the way, in the form of a goat, and told him that he would soon be imprisoned, but that he should not trouble himself, he would soon set him free. Besides this, by his soul's salvation, he knew nothing further, but what he had spoken was the pure truth. On that he would stake his life. On August the 6th, 1628, there was read to the aforesaid Junius this his confession, which he then wholly ratified and confirmed, and was willing to stake his life upon it, and afterward he voluntarily confirmed the same before the court. Immediately after his seduction, his succubus had demanded that he should make away with his youngest boy, Hans Georg, and had given him a grey powder for this purpose. This, however, being too hard for him, he had made away with his brown horse instead. His succubus had also repeatedly urged him to kill his daughters, and because he refused, he had been beaten therefor. Once, at the suggestion of his succubus, he had taken the holy wafer out of his mouth and had given it to her, was obliged occasionally to have intercourse with his succubus. A week before his arrest, as he was going to St. Martin's Church, the devil met him on the way, in the form of a goat, and told him that he would soon be imprisoned, but that he should not trouble himself, he would soon set him free. Besides this, by his soul's salvation, he knew nothing further, but what he had spoken was the pure truth. On that he would stake his life. On August the 6th, 1628, there was read to the aforesaid Junius this his confession, which he then wholly ratified and confirmed, and was willing to stake his life upon it, and afterward he voluntarily confirmed the same before the court. Letter of Burgomeister Johannes Junius to his daughter Veronica.